Hello everybody, I know there's a lot of angst and questions, going to do as best I can to answer them. So this pullback today is no surprise. In the video yesterday, we were looking for consolidation. I believe I said, direct quote, it would be irresponsible for me to tell anybody to go long up here. The chart needs to consolidate. We're now setting lower highs and lower lows. So the momentum has shifted and the trading style has shifted from higher lows and higher highs to lower highs and lower lows. So I'm going to break down multiple time frames, what to be looking for, what to expect going forward, and how we knew that this bottom just formed. The bottom is in for this afternoon, in my opinion, and I'll tell you why. So on the daily time frame, we had our bearish reversal candlestick pointed out very clearly, big upper wick of profit taking, and now we're seeing follow through to the downside. That being said, this is healthy consolidation. This is absolutely healthy. Considering where we came from, this is exactly what long-term bulls want to see right now. Now, that could change over the next couple of days, and that's why I take everything one day at a time with the new information. For me to make a prediction and then not be able to pivot and change that would be silly, because every single day I'm getting new information that is factoring into my analysis. So the bulls are buying the dip. We'll have to see how we hold up overnight here, but what I am watching is this hourly time frame, and the hourly time frame on all of these names is your friend, because we could see our lower high being set. So we had yesterday our high, the low of the dump, and then we did see a lower high, or excuse me, a higher low and a higher high. So it looked pretty good for the bulls heading into this morning, but the volume wasn't really high. It wasn't really convincing in terms of the power that the bulls had behind this move. So now we have a lower high to be watching, so we can put our downtrend resistance line right there and keep an eye on that level. And best case scenario for this bounce to play out overnight and into tomorrow is making it all the way up to this resistance line, keeping in mind that as every hour goes by, this is going to be a bit lower. So let's say it takes, a dozen hours to reach this bounce. We can, best case scenario, 25.50, we could see a move up here. That's potentially possible. And one thing that had us looking to know that the bounce or the bottom was in for now, RSI is no longer a good indicator. Support levels, I'm not noticing that they play much factor. Today, this bounce was all about volume. As I've said in previous videos, volume climaxes often signal the top of an uptrend or the bottom of a downtrend. And I pointed out in yesterday's video the volume climax signaling the top. So now this is the volume climax signaling the bottom. And what we saw, look at this 5-minute candlestick on Bitcoin here. The volume was, let's see, it's saying 891. And obviously it's more than that, but that's the numeric value given here. So 891. But it's so much more than any other candlestick of volume, except all the way back on the last dump. Look at the last dump. Look at the bottom. Volume climax. The most volume that we saw was at the low, and then we bounced. Same exact thing just played out. The most volume we saw, and now the bounce. So I saw that volume forming on the 5-minute time frame. I see our bullish reversal hammer candlestick, and then I looked over at the hourly time frame. And at that point, I looked at the hourly and I said, okay, we're right at the previous hours of volume total, and we have 25 minutes left to go. The very likely odds are that this is the volume climax. Look at the volume climax back on the last dump, the hourly time frame. The highest hourly volume candlestick was the bottom. And why that happens is because you have the climax where it's the most selling pressure and then the most buying pressure right on the way back up. So it's a combination of huge bear volume and huge bull volume that ends up giving you that volume climax. So this is a very clear bullish reversal hammer. It just formed. We're now looking for confirmation with another green candlestick, and we are looking for a bounce to play out. And there's going to be bounces or higher lows. Let's try that again. There's going to be consolidation along the way. So we're not going to shoot straight up here. We're about to consolidate, in my opinion, on this 5-minute chart and pull back, and then everybody might get scared. Is this going to be the low again? But in my opinion, we're going to pull back, form a higher low, and then see continuation with a higher high. I do believe our bottom is in for now. Now, long term, if we're looking a week out, do I know if the bottom is in? Absolutely not. I have no idea. And I'm not going to make any guesses on that. I'm going to play the here and now, and I'm going to be watching the hourly time frame and this downtrend resistance. What it's going to take for this trend to change is going to be higher lows and higher highs. So here is our lower high and lower low very clearly. Now, if the bulls want to change things, they have to form the high of the bounce, pull back, form a higher low, and then form a higher high. But even then, we still have this downtrend resistance line to break. So we're not going to be really confident that the trend has changed until 2683 breaks. That's a long way to go, but that would make it very clear. We're going to test the all-time high. We might see continuation. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. What we're looking for in the here and now is for a higher low and a higher high to happen on this hourly time frame, which will then give us the indication, okay, we're right, the bottom has been set for now, and we're going to be looking for this downtrend resistance line to be our target. So the 5-minute time frame, in terms of the next couple hours, what we're looking for, I want to see a higher low and a higher high. We just had a brief period of consolidation. That's not very significant. I want to see a clear little pullback with a few red candlesticks in a row, and then the bulls show up and say, okay, we're done, and then continue to higher highs. So in terms of resistance levels, you can use these 5-minute previous levels to be watching, and we've got one right here. This is where we topped out on a couple bounce attempts. So I'm looking here at 23.39. We might as well round it to 23.40. We topped out a couple times on bounce attempts. So let's watch this resistance. Then I'd be looking at this bounce attempt back up here. So that top right there, that's at 23.88. And then I would zoom out, and here, that's up at 24.63. So I've already flipped a position here. I'm out right now because I am anticipating the consolidation to form a higher low. And we'll see if that does play out. So one thing I want to point out right now is we're at this bounce, and in my opinion, we're about to hit a short-term top of this bounce. We have a downtrend resistance line on this 5-minute, and I found the top of this bounce, and I'm hitting these lower highs. And after seeing the magnitude of this move, I do expect to have some resistance here and potentially consolidate and then form a higher low. So let's see if that ends up playing out. That resistance is right at 23.62, and if we reject from this downtrend resistance line, we will look to form a higher low, and if the bulls want to remain their strongest, this little one candlestick of consolidation, they want to form a higher low above that level, and that's down at 22.50. So anything above 22.50 would be a higher low. So let's look at the other names here. ETH, everything's doing the same thing again. If you're trading anything, you're watching Bitcoin. It is the leader here. There have been a couple differences here, though, where I've noticed ETH on the way down has given a couple signs that it has a little bit more strength than Bitcoin. I saw a little bounce attempt with some decent movement behind it before Bitcoin started bouncing, and then I've also noticed volume comparatively on the 5-minute time frame. If I look at the volume here on this bounce recovery and the long lower wicks on the volume climaxes, and then I look at the Bitcoin 5-minute and see that a lot of that volume was straight up bear, like this candlestick right here with that volume climax, that's an entirely bear volume candlestick because it's a red Marubozu with the bears controlling the entirety of it with no lower wick. But you look at the ETH, and I would say more of the volume at the low was attributed to bulls buying the dip than Bitcoin. But either way, they're seeing the exact same bounce, and the hourly chart is what we need to be watching. So for Ethereum, we can draw the same. I got all kinds of lines here. Let me clean this up real quick. But it's the same downtrend resistance that we need to be watching, and anticipating, again, a lower high to be formed here. This is not a trend change, in my opinion. We don't have enough information to say that. So here is our lower high to be watching, and again, best case scenario bounce. It all depends on the speed. If we were to bounce straight up, we could make it all the way here. And again, I'm not saying we're going to reject from here. This is just an ideal scenario target. So if we, form a higher low and then take our time and we get up there, it's looking at about the mid 180s as an ideal top for, or not a top, but an ideal target. That would be a best case scenario for a bounce, I would say, getting that kind of gains in the short term. And LTC, it's the same thing. There's our bounce. And again, you can see how similar they are. 5-minute candlestick had one period of consolidation before continuation. ETH on the 5-minute doing the exact same thing. So right now, these bulls are doing a good job of confirming this hourly bullish reversal candlestick. And let's look on the hourly. Sorry again about all these lines. Let's look at the hourly downtrend resistance. That is the level to be watching on all of these charts. So we can actually have two downtrend lines here. It looks like LTC is a bit weaker than the other two in the sense that we had this drop as well. So we have two downtrend resistances to be watching. If we break the first, we'll go to the second. But as of right now, the first one, we're looking in the upper $29 range. If it takes a bit longer, it'll be the mid to lower $29 range. And then we'll see if we can break that level. But we have actually a couple more tops to watch here. We have our high, lower high, a third lower high, and we look at ETH and BTC on the hourly, and that's an extra lower high thrown in the mix. And actually, I take that back. That's not the case. So we did have that lower high across the board. So nice follow through so far on this bounce, making me ever more confident that we are seeing the low of now being set, and we're going to see what the bulls can do with this overnight. We need to see how many higher lows and higher highs we can pull off here. And BTC just did break that downtrend resistance line on the 5-minute time frame. So some nice strength and some nice follow through. And we're now looking up at this next resistance that I drew up. That's at 23.88 and heading our way towards that level. So look at the volume and let's compare it, right? So we had this dump down here, this little 15-minute dump. That's high bear volume compared to everything before it. But now we have bull volume to match that on the way back up. So I would say what we've been watching the past hour, the bulls are definitely in full control of this volume, and we're now going to be looking at a bullish afternoon and overnight. So again, that is not changing the long term. That is the short term outlook. In terms of the longer term, is this the bottom? I cannot say. Was yesterday the bottom on the dump? Couldn't say then either, but then once we set our lower high and started heading back down this morning, it was a lot less likely that it was. So what I'm going to be looking for on the daily time frame is the equilibrium pattern. And we now have our range. This range, in my opinion, because it's so large, this is going to be set for a few days. And we're watching the all-time high and the low of this pullback now. So we're going to be looking at our high, our low, and it looks like that even might have been our lower high, the high of today. And the next candlestick that forms, we'll have to see a higher low. These candlesticks aren't really developed enough to see that equilibrium pattern play out right now. I'm going to stick to the hourly chart. That's really the best visualization of this move that we currently have. And when we will be confident that the bottom has been set and we're going to see the bulls return in control, will when we have, in my opinion, another lower high set here. We'll pull back, we'll form a higher low and then a higher high. And then we'll have our sights set on 2683. If for some reason we see higher lows and then break that 2683 right away, that would show tons of strength, and we're looking at new all-time highs. So again, this daily consolidation is absolutely expected. It is normal and healthy. It's just happening really, really fast. There's so much interest, there's so much volume, there's so much money playing these names that everything that usually in the stock market that I'm used to taking days and days are happening in a matter of hours. So everything is accelerated, and it's a lot faster paced, but there is plenty of opportunity there. And again, at this point, I do not like long positions. I'm not comfortable with them. I'm a day trader, so I'm not comfortable long stock positions either. I love being cash. I love being in full control. So I'll keep posting. Again, I got that webinar coming up on Monday. I think we're going for 10 a.m. Eastern. And then I'll do videos in between if all this action keeps up. So thanks again, everybody. Feel free to ask questions, and I appreciate the questions that I'll answer on the webinar. And, the questions that you ask, I read them. I might not answer them right then and there in the comments, but I can incorporate them into the next video. Thanks again.